Hey everyone, Matt Jarbo here with kzomradio to give you a special podcast update on the Kony 2012 movement that launched yesterday online. I know it's not really kind of what we talk about here on the network, and I know I'm probably going to get flagged and just hated on a lot for what I'm going to say, but I really felt that I needed to bring this knowledge forward to give you the most informed decision on what to do with your wanting to be involved with this movement. Please keep in mind, and I'm just making this clear right now, I am not attacking the movement to bring Kony to justice. I do believe that Joseph Kony is a cruel, evil, maniacal person who does need to be stopped. This is more about the invisible children and their organization and things I believe that you should know about them in order to make an informed decision about where to spend your money. And the further I get into it, you'll understand. But first, let me tell you about Kony 2012, in case you're one of, the people who weren't online yesterday and saw this. It is a campaign started by Invisible Children, Inc., and the name of a very crazy viral video that went out yesterday. The movement's purpose is to make Joseph Kony, who is a Ugandan war criminal, known to the world for his arrest within the year 2012. The film was launched yesterday on March 7th, and has currently been seen over 5.4 million times on Vimeo and over 7.8 million times on other video sharing sites like YouTube and other places. I mean, this thing is everywhere. It is just all over the place. Of course, Twitter last night was ablaze with every celebrity, like Rihanna, Kristen Bell, Martha Plimpton, big people that were just like, check out Stop Kony, Kony 2012, hashtag Mark Push. And it's like, okay, well, people are retweeting it, people are posting it. And I have just that really kind of, the fact that they're able to get this kind of activism going actually really kind of invigorated, my belief structure in or my faith in humanity. I was like, oh wow, cool, people are getting involved. And then I started kind of reading into it. I've had a little bit of a history. Well, I kind of want to say history. I've had experiences with the Invisible Children organization in the past, being that I'm from San Diego, and they are located in San Diego. We've come across each other's paths before. Not in any recognizable way, but just in a way that I kind of want to explain myself in regards as to why I'm doing this, so you get an understanding of everything. A couple years ago, I met some kids who were interning for the Invisible Children, and they wanted to give me a copy of the DVD. So I gave them my address. They sent me a copy of the movie, and I watched it, and it was a good movie. I thought it had a strong message. It was pretty sad, I showed my kid's sister. And then I looked inside the DVD packaging, and it was like, okay, cool, you bought this DVD. Now there's 2 copies of the movie in here. Give one to a friend. And then have that friend, buy it for somebody else and give a copy away. And it's just like, okay, well, it's kind of like an odd pyramid scheme, but okay. And they were gearing up for one of their first big events, which was, or not one of the first, but just a big event of a night underneath the stars, and trying to show support for the kids who are stuck like that, which is, and again, an honorable event, an honorable thing. But fast forward a couple years, and my next experience with them was at a San Diego filmmakers meeting. And I believe 2009, it has to be 2009, where one of the filmmakers' fathers who works in the company came and spoke. And I was a little apprehensive, only because I figured that they felt to me at that point very kind of money hungry, and they were just trying to push you to buy more stuff. And so I paid it, I listened to what this guy had to say, and he essentially told all of us that we should feel horrible for owning things. He really pushed the give more. What we're doing is awesome. And most people would kind of believe in that. I really think that it plays well to teenagers if you're pandering that. But if you go to people who are in their 40s and who are filmmakers and who are kind of cynical, it's going to rub them the wrong way. In fact, it did anger a lot of people in that room. They were calling him several names after the fact, and very just dismissive of what he had to say, and felt like he wasn't respecting them. It's not donate a little bit, it's give everything you have. And we hear that a lot from, religious entities, which is another thing, is Invisible Children. It started as let me go through this here. In 2003, three filmmakers traveled to Africa to document the genocide in Darfur, but instead uncovered a conflict that shocked them and compelled them to take action. What resulted was a documentary that about the ongoing war originated in northern Uganda. The film depicts the atrocities of the LRA, which is the Lord's Resistance Army, a rebel group that had been abducting children to fill its ranks and terrorizing the people of northern Uganda for years and years and years, and it hasn't gone through. So they made this documentary, and then they just got really big. But the thing is, if you watch the documentary, it says that they were funded by their church. So it's a religious organization that's pushing this documentary forward. Again, not criticizing. I'm saying we've seen this kind of action in missionary works too. It's where they use guilt to get you to donate more so than faith. And that's kind of also what the criticisms of this movement have been, which I'll get to in a little bit. So that is, the history of invisible children, the documentary. Of course, throughout 9 years, they have grown exponentially in support and everything else. So there is that. But first off, let me get into who Joseph Kony is, because if you guys, have an idea of everything he's done, let me just give you a quick overview. He was born in 1961 in Odek, Uganda. He is a guerrilla group leader. He's the head of the Lord's Resistance Army, a group engaged in violent campaigns to establish theocratic government based on the Ten Commandments throughout Uganda. The LRA says that God has sent spirits to communicate this mission directly to Kony. Directed by Kony, the LRA has earned a reputation for its actions against people of several countries, including northern Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, and Sudan. It has abducted and forced an estimated 66,000 children to fight for them, and he has also forced the internal displacement of over 2 million people since its rebellion began in 1986. As a result, in 2005, Kony was indicted for war crimes by the International Criminal Court, but succeeded in evading capture since. So, you get an idea of who this guy is. He rapes and, kills kids and has them puts a gun in their hands and then tells them to kill their parents and kill their friends. It is talked about in the documentary, Invisible Children. There have been other documentaries made about this in the past, because generally once the child gets inundated into the ranks, they get them hooked on drugs. They get them very spaced out, very crazy, and they basically get them to kill for them. And it just keeps this constant cycle going in the region, and it's horrible. It's just a horrible situation. So that is kind of what the Kony 2012 movement is about. Just to give you a bit of a background about the LRA, it was formed in 1987 in the Acholi region of northern Uganda. Initially, the LRA was an outgrowth and continuation of the larger armed resistant movement waged by some of the Acholi people against the central Ugandan government, which they felt marginalized by them. Over 25 years, the LRA's political goals have become much harder to decipher. In the past decade, the group has spent much of its energy attacking, killing, and enslaving unarmed Acholis in its own tribe, including many women and children. It's led by Kony, who proclaims himself a spokesperson of God in a spirit medium, primarily of the Holy Spirit, which the group believes can represent itself in many manifestations. And also in May 2010, Barack Obama signed into law the Lord's Resistance Army's Disarmament and Northern Uganda Recovery Act. It was legislation aimed at stopping Kony and the LRA. The bill passed unanimously in the Senate March 11, 2010. And on November 4th, 2010, Obama delivered a strategy document to Congress asking for more money to disarm Kony and the LRA. Since then, the United States diplomatic cables leak on November 28, 2010, when WikiLeaks started to publish classified documents of detailed correspondence between the U.S. State Department and its diplomatic missions around the world. Sudan's neighbor Uganda blames Khartoum for paying and harboring Ugandan rebel Joseph Kony, the leader of the LRA and a brutal rebel group that has waged the longest-running insurgency in Africa. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni told U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Jindai Fraser in September 2007 that Sudan was behind the rebellion's longevity, and he said that even if the government could not supply the LRA at previous levels, he believed it was in constant touch with the LRA and smuggling supplies. On October 14th, 2011, Obama announced that he had ordered the deployment of 100 military advisors with a mandate to train, assist, and provide intelligence to combat the LRA. It has been reported that the bulk of the troops are from the Army Special Forces. Obama said that the deployment did not need explicit approval from Congress, as the 2010 Lord's Resistance Army Disarmament and Northern Uganda Recovery Act already authorized increased comprehensive U.S. efforts to migrate and eliminate the threat posed by the LRA to civilians and regional stability. The military advisors will be armed and will provide assistance and advice, but will not engage the LRA forces unless necessary for self-defense. The advisors will operate in South Sudan, the Central African Republic, and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Subjective to approval by those states, the military advisors will not operate independently of the host states. Human Rights Watch welcomed the deployment, which they had previously advocated for. General Carter Ham, the head of the U.S. Africa Command, said that his best estimate was that Joseph Kony was probably in the Central African Republic, not located in Uganda. So that's kind of the background of where we are, and that's actually listed in the documentary. Well, it's touched upon in the documentary is that invisible children had gone forward and they had pushed and they'd pushed and they'd pushed and they got Obama to sign in the Lord's Resistance Army Disarmament and Northern Uganda Recovery Act. And of course, that met with a lot of resistance and from the conservative side, and we won't get into that. But it's definitely a step in the right direction to bring this guy down. So let's kind of rein it back in. I've given you the history of Kony and why this movement exists, but let me tell you why I'm doing this podcast. It's the Invisible Children group itself. Once this went live yesterday, the lovely, lovely folks at Reddit decided to do what they do best, which is to dig. And of course, while one person may support a group, there's always another person that's really there just to kind of poo on it. And so, I given more to the slanted side of these guys are kind of like, I was more paying attention to that. I wanted to see this debunked. I did, because I want to see what we uncover. And here's what we found based upon their 2011 spending reports, which are completely available on their website at invisiblechildren.com. You can find their financials, and this is what we pulled out from the 2011 reports. They brought in 13 million. They only spent 8.9 million. 1.7 million of that was on U.S. employee salaries. 357 of that was in film costs. 850,000 of that was in production costs. 685,000 in computer equipment. 244,000 in professional services, aka DC lobbyists. 1.07 million in travel expenses. 400,000 to rent an office in San Diego, and 16,000 in entertainment, etc., etc., etc. Only 2.8 million, or 31%, actually made it to their charity program, which is further whittled down by the local Ugandan government. So it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, they've done a lot. If you look at the movie, they've done a lot. You see, like, they've built the early warning system, the schools, churches, whatever. But, I mean, granted, they are an awareness group, but only 31% of the finances that they've brought in. And keep in mind, they made $13 million in 2011 that was brought into their nonprofit organization, and they only spent $8.9 million. So where is the remaining $4.1 million? That's a question. I don't have an answer for that, but that is something to think about. Noelle Joglet, the Invisible Children's Director of Communications, actually responded to this post with these statistics taken from their own website. And here's what he says. Invisible Children's overall mission is to remove Joseph Kony from the battlefield and stop LRA violence. These are the 3 essential ways we achieve that mission. 1, document and make the world aware of the LRA. This includes making documentary films and touring these films around the world so that they are seen for free by millions of people. Number 2, channeling the energy and awareness from these informed viewers of the Invisible Children films into advocacy campaigns that have mobilized the international community to stop the LRA and protect civilians. And number 3, to operate programs on the ground in the LRA-affected areas to provide protection, rehabilitation, and development assistance. And here he goes through the 1.7 million U.S. employee salaries. These are not just salaries in the U.S., and the ratio of salaries to overall expense is very appropriate in relation to nonprofit standard. The $357,000 in film costs. These include the costs for the creation, production, and editing of multiple films per year. These costs are inclusive of film projects that have yet to be released. The $850,000 in production costs. The direct cost of merchandise and awareness products that we sell or give away, such as bracelets and DVDs. These are the hard costs of productions that are negotiated to be extremely competitive while maintaining quality in our manufacturing and design. $685,000 in computer equipment. He says, I'm not sure where he gets this number, but it is not accurate. To amend that, that was actually the number for 2010. The 2011 number was $751,000. The $244,000 in professional services, aka DC lobbyists. He says, this is not DC lobbyists at all. Our DC lobbyists are hundreds of thousands of young people. Professional services include third-party web hosting, web maintenance, and event registration build-outs, digital advertising, and legal fees. The $1.07 million in travel expenses. He says, international travel and movement in LRA affected areas is very expensive. There is little to no communication infrastructure in these remote regions of Central Africa, so implementing programs like the Early Warning Radio Network is very expensive. Many of these expenses are the costs that it takes to operate 3,000 free screenings of Invisible Children films around North America. On host homes, host hotels, the costs for gas, vans, flights, etc. are still extremely high. In addition, the number includes costs bringing 20-plus Ugandans to the U.S., each to advocate for themselves and their neighbors in Central Africa for 10 weeks at a time. The $400,000 in office rent in San Diego. The red line item includes much more than the San Diego office and includes things such as dorm-style housing for our full-time but unpaid interns who donate 6 months of their life to live and work for Invisible Children. There will be more on this later. In response to the question, what do the children actually get? He says, world-class sustainable development programs and soon a world free from LRA violence. And that was Noel's response. So that was kind of like an official response back. This is what the company says the money goes for. It's very vague. The 1.07 million, talking about like vans and expenses and whatnot. That's kind of like they already have all these vans. If you look on their website, if you look on their videos, you see they have tons of vans and tons of movements and stuff. And not to mention their what they said with the production costs, with the cost of merchandise and awareness products that we sell or give away, such as bracelets and DVDs. If you look on the website, you will see that the DVDs are on sale. The bracelets are $10 on sale. You can get posters and T-shirts; they're all on sale. So the production costs is that, but what do they bring in? Is that part of the 4.1 million that they didn't spend? So these are just questions that have come up. And then, as these questions come up, more criticisms come up, more elements arrive, and we want to be able to see exactly what is going on. So there is at yesterday when the whole viral video went crazy. There was a Tumblr post that was made by Grant Oyston. He's a sociology and political science student at Acadia University in Nova Scotia, Canada. And he was basically put this together for people to read. So if you go to visiblechildren.tumblr.com, you can read up what he says. And actually, I'm just going to kind of run through it. It is going to be a bit of a repeat of what I said, but it's not very long, and we'll just rush through this because, if you're listening, I think you want to know. The name of the blog is, like I said, visiblechildren.tumblr.com. The name of the post is We Got Trouble. I do not doubt for a second that those involved in Kony 2012 have great intentions, nor do I doubt for a second that Joseph Kony is a very evil man. But despite this, I'm strongly opposed to the Kony 2012 campaign. Kony 2012 is the product of a group called Invisible Children, a controversial activist group and not-for-profit. They've released 11 films, most with an accompanying bracelet color. Kony 2012 is fittingly red, all of which focus on Joseph Kony. When we buy merch from them, when we link to their video, when we put up posters linking to their website, we support the organization. I don't think that's a good thing, and I'm not alone. Invisible Children has been condemned time and time again as a registered not-for-profit. Its finances are public. Last year, the organization spent $8,676,614, and only 32% went to services, with much of the rest going to staff salaries, travel, transport, and film production. This is far from ideal, and Charity Navigator rates their accountability at 2 out of 4 stars because they haven't had their finances externally audited, but it goes way deeper than that. The group is in favor of direct military intervention, and their money supports the Ugandan government's army and various other military forces. Here's a photo of the founders of Invisible Children posing with weapons and personnel of the Sudan's People Liberation Army. Both the Ugandan Army and the Sudan People's Liberation Army are riddled with accusations of rape and looting, but Invisible Children defends them, arguing that the Ugandan Army is better equipped than that of any other affected countries, although Kony is no longer active in Uganda and hasn't been since 2006, by their own admission. These books refer to the rape and sexual assault that are perennial issues with the UPDF, the military group Invisible Children is defending. Still, the bulk of Invisible Children's spending isn't on supporting African militias, but on awareness and filmmaking, which can be great, except that Foreign Affairs has claimed that Invisible Children, among others, manipulates facts for strategic purposes, exaggerating the scale of LRA abductions and murders and emphasizing the LRA's use of innocent children as soldiers and portraying Kony, a brutal man to be sure, as uniquely awful, a Kurtz-like embodiment of evil. He is certainly evil, but exaggeration and manipulation to capture the public eye is unproductive, unprofessional, and dishonest. As Chris Blattman, a political scientist at Yale, writes on the topic of IC's programming, there's also something inherently misleading, naive, and maybe even dangerous about the idea of rescuing children or saving Africa. It hints uncomfortably at white man's burden, or worse, it does more than just hint. The savior attitude is pervasive in advocacy, and it inevitably shapes programming, usually misconceived programming. Still, Kony's a bad guy, and he's been around for a while, which is why the U.S. has been involved in stopping him for years. The U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, has sent multiple missions to capture or kill Kony over the years, and they fail time and time again, each time provoking a ferocious response and increased relative slaughter. The issue with taking out a man who uses a child army as his bodyguards is any effort to capture or kill him will certainly result in many children's deaths, an impact that needs to be minimalized as much as possible. Kony has been involved in peace talks in the past which have fallen through, but Invisible Children is now focusing on military intervention. So I won't go through the rest of it, but you guys get an idea. That's kind of like the point, is that these guys are pushing for direct military intervention through campaigning, through lobbying, through these kind of actions. And so is that the right, is that the right response? It's like, hey, they're promoting awareness. They are promoting advocacy for this group to bring Kony to justice, which is all great, but how much of it are they pushing for a military involvement? So that is kind of hard. The Better Business Bureau has said that they have no information on the charity group, as they have not given any information. Same with the other charity group that I mentioned. Sorry, I'm trying to find their name. Charity Navigator, that's going to be the other one. So they are secretive with their finances. I don't exactly say that there's wrongdoing going on, but it's kind of iffy, kind of sketchy, and just, it's best to be well informed. There is, however, a one last piece of information I did want to touch upon, and that is their roadie campaign. That was what Noel had said, that they have people who will work, that live and work for free for 6 months at a time with them, and almost kind of like a commune environment. And I found this post written by a woman named Katie on a topics.com discussion forum about Invisible Children yesterday, and I'm going to read this verbatim. Mike, anyone, please help me. My daughter, graduating top of her class from UCF, gave up a job offered to join this organization. I felt in my heart that there was more to this project, but as a mom of an adult daughter, she gave it to God and let her do her own thing so that she would grow as her own person, whether right or wrong. She lives in La Mesa, California, in a home of 50 other young adults. The big house on Maiden Drive has 7 bedrooms, on a good day, 4, maybe 5 working bathrooms. Work hours over the legal limit of hours. If this is true, this is a cult in process. I need to know. If she's too naive, then I need to do what is in the best interest of future roadies. She's an adult and can make her own decisions. I can't change that. However, I'm an aged, seasoned adult and can make my own decisions as well. I am seeking true information. Thank you, Katie. So this I hadn't heard of before, and so I looked it up. I did a Google map search of Maiden Drive, trying to find what I could. I ended up just Googling it, came across the Roadie house on Foursquare, which has the address. So I looked it up. It's a suburban house in a nice area. It's off the 8 freeway and by College area, by the SDSU area in San Diego, and that is where they are currently staying at. Well, not right now, because if you go look on the Invisible Children website, the roadies have all gone out to like major cities in the U.S. and to work on the Color the Night area, which I'll be getting to in just one second. So looking at, if 40 to 50 people living in a house that are working constantly on this activity, they're not paid, and they say that they're not paid. Room and board is taken care of, but these people are not paid for 6 months of their time to donate to a cause. That does kind of feel very cult-ish. And if I was still living in San Diego, I actually would have gone to the house last night. I will be going to the house next time I am in town, which will be in a few weeks, which I can report back more then. I'm going to go and just check it out. So that is kind of an interesting thing, is like they have, an army of kids working underneath them, and if you watch their videos, they show all these kids like lined up and working together, which again, it's a good thing, but it kind of feels a little weird. I don't want to say like Halley's Comet, but you never know. And so yeah, that's a little bit interesting of a thing. And then if you go look on their website, you will see how much it costs for all the merchandise, and it's quite a bit. For t-shirts, $30 for like the action kit, which gets you like, the bracelets and some flyers and some things to put out. But the biggest issue I had was the April 20th Cover the Night movement. And that's supposed to be, on at nighttime on April 20th, go out and you're just going to make Joseph Kony famous. Everyone's going to know who Joseph Kony is. You're put on every street corner. Everyone's going to know. So what they're, and this is where I don't understand why no one said this. They're basically telling people to litter for one, to vandalize for second, and to put up these flyers, and I mean, granted, it's like a worthwhile campaign. We're going to go out there. We're going to make everyone know. But it's like, wouldn't it be better to, hold up signs of Kony and then like go to like sporting events and do like the Occupy movement did, where they went to events and they got people's attention and then they left. They raised awareness and then they left. But this is going to be having people sneak out in the middle of the night, a lot of whom are probably going to be under the age of 18, high school students that will be breaking curfew and going out and placing these posters and these flyers on everything they can. And how many of them are going to be putting it on private property and private businesses and private residences, and how many of them are going to be vandalizing because they don't know any different. Because they're not going to have any leadership or anyone there. I feel that the Cover of the Night event is a dangerous thing that can damage the movement. So these are the facts that I have put together, that I've looked up. And of course, I have my own speculation, my own opinion, but I just wanted to give you guys a solid idea of what is going on with Invisible Children, with Kony 2012. I understand that a lot of you who might be in favor of this are probably going to think I'm crazy, and I'm not trying to be crazy, but this is just what I've been able to find out. You can look all this information up for yourself. You can go over to Reddit and look it up. I'll post links on the website of this, or on our website. I'll post links that I found so you guys can see it for yourself. And thank you very much for listening. My name is Matt Jarbo. This is kzomradio, and have a good one.